Hello everyone, Oregon Moto John. I'm here today with a Honda 125 and we're going to be putting a new chain on here. And just something you should know is this bike comes with a non-O-ring chain, and I think it's a good quality chain because a lot of people leave it on and get lots of miles, but it's I researched it a little bit, and it is a non-O-ring chain, which means that the rollers and pins in here are not internally lubricated. Let me show you what I mean. Stay tuned. Okay, so what that means is that this chain is not sealed. So where this rivet is, there's no seal to keep contaminants out or grease in. So really, any lubrication you put on the chain, that's all it's going to get. It's not internally lubricated. Now, you take a chain like this, which is the same. This takes a 428 chain. I found a 120 link chain, DID chain. I've had really good luck with DID chains holding up over time. And we'll probably need to cut this to length, but if you get 120 lengths, you'll be fine. So this chain, you can see it's a little thicker. Sometimes they're a little heavier, but they're internally lubricated. You can see even the Master Link has these O-rings, and it comes with a grease packet. That's so you can, grease these pins and put the O-rings on there, and it holds the grease in. Likewise, this chain has a seal here, and it holds the grease in internally so that this will stay lubricated. Long story short, what that means is this chain will last longer. You still need to just basically keep it clean. You can lubricate the outside a little bit, but even that isn't that important because it's internally lubricated. You still don't want it to get rusty and nasty. Some WD-40 on there or something to keep it clean is really important. Now, you may be asking, why are you replacing this chain on this brand new bike? Well, bike pretty much brand new. The reason is that if this chain wears or stretches, then it prematurely wears your sprockets here and your primary drive in the front up there. So I've always had good luck with when I get a bike, I put a quality O-ring chain on it, and then you'll be amazed how long the sprockets last with a quality chain. Now, if you wait, yes, you can get a lot of miles out of this, no doubt you can, but then when you change this, by then you'll have worn your sprockets and you will need to replace the rear and front sprocket at the same time as you replace your chain. Now, not a bad way to go, but I like to put an O-ring chain on right away, and then that lasts a lot longer. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to upgrade the chain on this Honda Trail 125, and then it'll be good for years to come. I doubt I'll have to really look at it again. The first step is we just need to remove this clip. And you can see it's got we always want to put it facing this direction, so the back of it is facing that way, so that the wheel is turning. If it catches on something, it won't rip it off. So what that means, to take it off, you can either get a screwdriver and put on here and tap it with a hammer. You can tap this back here, or you can use, they have these little pliers, which are made to go on here and push it off. So since I have the pliers, I'm going to use that. But you could certainly use a screwdriver. There it goes. Got it. See how that just flicked it off? I put the long end here and the short end with the little cutout on there, and then it just pushes it off. Now we can kind of just flick that off the rest of the way with a screwdriver, or however we want to. And that just kind of will pull right off of there, just like that. Now it's just a matter of kind of pulling up. Oh, these smaller chains come apart so nice. Then you just push that link out. But I need to cut this chain to length to match this chain first. And this one says 428 on it. And the new chain we got is a 4/28, so that's called the chain pitch, and this is the right pitch. Now, the new chain is going to be heavier than this because it's a stronger chain, but you know what? I'm okay with that when it comes to the drivetrain. So put your bike in neutral by pushing all the way down multiple times, and then you can put your bike on the center stand and you can pull the chain out. Okay, this is important. We've now laid both chains out on the ground, and you can see the one on the top is the original chain, and it's slightly shorter than the one on the bottom, which is the new chain. The new chain was 120 links, and we can tell that the older chain is shorter, so we need to cut the new chain. It's very important that you line up the ends perfectly of the new chain and old chain, and make sure there aren't any bumps, nothing's pushed up, because you don't get to recut a chain. We can't add back once we cut it. So you can see I go all the way down to the end, and so we're going to need to cut this chain. And we're going to need to push this pin through right here, and that will leave us with the same length chain once we put our master link in. So now I'm going to take a grinder, grind this end off, and drive it out with a chain braking tool. You can also mark this with chalk so that you don't, if you lose track, you don't grind the wrong one. Now I just have this hand grinder. I'm going to carefully grind the end of this rivet out without touching any parts of the other good portion of the chain in this direction. We're just going to grind on this rivet. Sometimes it helps to bend the chain up. With the chain bent back, now it's very clear that this is the one that I need to grind off. So we'll take the grinder now, put this up to here, and we're going to carefully grind the tip of that off without hurting ourselves. Safety glasses and gloves are a good idea. Okay, now we're going to grind this rivet off carefully. We're going to continue this process until this rivet is flat, and then it will easily drive out. When you're done, the rivet will be flat. Try to get that to focus for you, like so. Then you know you're ready to drive it out. Try not to nick the link next door like I did. It's only a superficial nick on the rivet, it won't hurt anything. Position the chain braking tool like so the nubbin is right on the rivet. This is an RK chain braking tool. It's for a 520 chain, but I think it'll work for the 428 just fine. Just don't have too much of the little central portion that drives the rivet out too long, or else it will bend the rivet braking tool. Okay, now we just turn this in to where the rivet gets started, and it'll punch that rivet. We have our part that we were grinding on here, and we're going to push that rivet through. And you'll feel it start to push the rivet through. If in doubt, we can always back this off. Look, I can feel it pushing through now. Okay, now that we've got it started, now we go up to this upper pin, and this drives that pin out the other side, and we'll start turning that one now. And it should turn fairly easily. I'm not applying a lot of force. I can feel it turning out the other side. Yep, it's turning right through. We'll keep turning. Keep turning. Keep turning. That rivet's going to come out any second. I can feel it. And see it coming out the other side there? There it goes. Now this chain is broken, and it's just a matter of disassembling this one back, and then we'll pull this one out as well. This is an RK chain tool. And once this comes apart, you'll see that our chain comes off. O-rings come out. You have new O-rings, so you can just set those aside for now. And the chain looks good. It's ready to be reassembled. We'll double check this length against the one we took off to make sure that it's the exact same length as the chain we just took off. Notice that these two chains are the same length now from start to finish. And both chain links, all the chain links are laid flat. Nothing's popped up. Now we're going to take our new chain and feed it up and around through here over the primary sprocket that you can see is in there. Once you feed the chain through, I was able to catch the primary sprocket through here with a screwdriver to help roll the chain through so I didn't have to remove the side cover. And then just feed it through as I rolled it through over the top here. Then I put the rear sprocket on in this orientation so that this will hold it while I put the new master link in. Now we're going to prep our new master link by putting grease on the master link that comes provided with the master link clip. There's our clip here. We have our O-ring, so we're going to put an O-ring here and here, put the grease on. Put this through from the back side, and then put an O-ring on the front side here, and then put our clip on, or our, I guess this would be our plate on, and then our clip on, being sure we have the proper orientation. Okay, so here we have this master link with the O-rings assembled and greased, and we're gonna put this on from the back side. Now we put our O-rings on here. Like this. My dogs are having fun in the background, I guess, playing with each other. And then we put on our end plate. Many times a press is needed to press this end plate on so that the clip can be put on. Okay, so now it's very important that we have this on in this orientation with the back towards the direction of rotation, so that it can't get snagged or hit. If this were this way, it would be rotating this way and it would snag this end off and take it off. So to get this link on, by the way, I did use a press tool. This is for a bigger chain, so I had to press this on one side at a time, screwing one side down, and then the other side down, and then one side down, until I got it to where I could feel the area here that's going to accept this clip. And so now it's just a matter of putting this on here like so. I may need to press this on a little further, or not. Get this on here. Then I'm going to straighten this out a little bit. And then we'll just kind of, I usually use a needle nose pliers. And then we're just going to push this on. Yeah, we're going to push this on like so. Or I could even use my special tool, but I think this will work fine. If you're fighting it too much, sometimes the plate isn't on far enough to let it to easily seat in the groove, so I'm just going to push this plate on just a fraction more, where I take this and I just lightly press it on. And then I'm going to pull that off and then just lightly press this on this other rivet. Press this on just a little bit. And again, this chain tool it's for a 520 chain and bigger, but it can work if I'm careful. Okay, now I've got this exposed a little more, and I think it'll make it easier for this clip to seat in the groove. Already that feels better. Because if this is too tight, this plate isn't on there far enough, this will never want to snap on. Oh yeah, see how easy that was now? Okay, now we still aren't home free. I don't feel like that's seated in there all the way. You can actually tell that it isn't. This needs to be, there. Now it's seated in all the way. Did you see the difference? That was very, very important. Now it's seated in all the way. And the rotation is such that this is going this way. The back of the clip is in so that this doesn't get flicked off if it catches something. Okay, now it's just a matter of adjusting the chain and we're done. Hello everyone, Oregon Moto John. Today I'm here with the 125 Trail, and anyway, we're gonna adjust this chain, and the key thing here is just getting it right. And we want to get it right, the right chain adjustment. Too tight will wear out our primary drive seal and cause a leak, cause premature wear on our sprockets and premature wear on our chain. So we want to get this right, and so we don't cause any of that. I'm adjusting this because the reason you might adjust this if you changed out your chain and sprockets, or maybe it's a new bike from the factory and you want to make sure this is okay. In this case, I just upgraded to a DID chain, an O-ring chain, so that it will have more longevity and I won't have to adjust it as much. And I'll show you what chain I used here in a second if you want to do the same. O-ring chains are internally lubricated, so if you keep them clean, they last a long, long time. Honda quality is very good, but in this case, they opted for a non-O-ring chain. I kind of have, there's reasons you would do that. It's lighter weight, easier, less rotational mass. So a lot of times in racing, they use non-O-ring chains, but in this case, I just want something that's going to maintain its adjustment and be just ease of maintenance. So that's why I did it. Okay. So let's get started. So before we get started, I always like to take a look at the manual and see what the manual is recommended. And here they're saying, the slack of the chain, and this is from the manual, the Honda manual, moving up and down should be 25 to 35 millimeters or 1 to 1.4 inches. Now, if we go up to this little sticker up here, it's nice that they put it on here. It says 30 millimeters or 1 to 1.25 inch. Okay, so when it's down here, it's saying 1.4 is the maximum, and up here they're saying 1.25. Now, this also says 30 millimeters here, and 30 millimeters puts us kind of right in the middle. So I'm going to go with the 30 millimeters, which puts us at 1.25. So here I have my millimeters on my inch scale here, and I demarcated the 1.25 inch is about 30 millimeters. 1.4 inches would put us, about at 35 millimeters or maybe a tad above. So, but I'm going to go with the 30 millimeters to put us right in the middle of the chain slack adjustment, just to be on the safe side. But if we have it a tad tighter at 25 millimeters, we could live with that. And 25 millimeters, if we have on the inch scale here, would be, we take a look, roughly an inch. Maybe a tad over, because you can see on the scale there. So we have 25 millimeters, and that would put us really close to it. Actually, we would be just over an inch, like 1.125 maybe. Okay, so let's get started. Now, there's chain slack tools and different tools, but most of us, I want to pick stuff that we all have around. And that's just a tape measure. So that's what I'm going to use. You need a 12 millimeter open wrench to take off this lock nut here. A 10 millimeter to wrench to loosen the 10 millimeter off of that. you need a, let's see, a 14 millimeter socket or end wrench to hold this, and a 19 millimeter socket or end wrench to break loose the nut on the other side. And we just have to loosen these. We don't have to remove the axle bolt. We're just gonna loosen this so that this will slide back and forth. So let's get started. So I'm gonna take my 19 millimeter socket, put it on here. From the factory, they had this torque, so I just indexed that so I can get it close to where it was. We'll review the torque spec on that too, so you know what that is. And you're just gonna get your socket on here. This is pretty tight, okay? And then you're just gonna break that loose. Now, if you're having trouble breaking it loose, you can always take a hammer and tap it. Give it a good jolt loose. Or you could get a longer breaker bar on there too, get more leverage. Make use of some physics for some more torque, more leverage. So I'm just gonna loosen this up. That's probably plenty, honestly. Now, if it starts to spin on the other side, that's where we would go over here with our, I think it was a 14 millimeter, and we're gonna hold this. Let's see if I turn that, if it's turning on that other side here. It feels like it is. Yep, it's turning. So we're gonna hold that as we loosen that up a little bit. So now we have a wrench on here. It's just a matter of holding this as we turn the ratchet on the other side, and we'll get that loosened up a few turns. Okay, now we have more threads exposed, or less threads exposed here, so this wheel is loose. I could see that things can slide back and forth here because this is kind of, I can move it back and forth and this will slide here. And now it's just a matter of getting things adjusted. And I know we're going to be making an adjustment here, so I'm going to loosen this one off, this 10 millimeter off, so it won't get in the way. Just get it out of the way. And then I'll take our 12 millimeter, and that one is loose because it's ready to make that adjustment. Okay, very easy. And I did the same thing on the other side already. So the manual does state to take the measurement at the midpoint, and there's nothing really on here to show the midpoint of the chain. So I went ahead and measured, you don't need to do this because I've done it for you. I measured up to the primary drive, back to the secondary drive or the rear sprocket, from the front sprocket to the rear sprocket, and it's roughly 18 inches. And so the midpoint, would be 9. And so what I found was 9 inches puts you about right at the back of the sticker, or just 1 finger width from the back of the sticker, so roughly right here. And if you move the chain around, that's funny because that's what I determined it was just by moving it up and down. This is where it feels like it has the most play, so less play as you approach the sprockets. And so right there, that's kind of probably where you'd grab anyway, although this you might fake you out and you might come back here, but no, it is indeed right here is where you're going to want to take that measurement. Kind of the finger widths in on that back of that, from the back of that sticker. So right there. Okay, so let's get started with our measurement. I went ahead and made a little mark down here. You'll never see that from the top, but you'll see it when you adjust your chain. So if you want to make a mark in that location, you'll be roughly right in the middle. Okay, so as you can see, we have our tape measure where our mark is. Okay, so we're measuring the chain slack at the midpoint between the front and rear sprockets, the midpoint of the chain. And I can push this up. I've kind of done this already, so to make it a little quicker. Now, it's hard to see, I know, but I'm measuring to the middle of the rivet. The manual says to measure from the middle of the rivets to the middle of the rivets. Honestly, as long as your reference was the same, you could measure from the top of the chain to the top of the chain, bottom of the chain to the bottom of the chain, but just to follow the manual for simplicity, I'm going to do it the way they're showing it. So there we go. I adjusted my tape measure. There's the chain I installed, by the way, a DID 428VX. So I adjusted this chain. It's got a little lock on it, so I can lock it into position. So you can see I can push up to the top. There's that rivet. And then look, when I go to the bottom, whoa, where are we at, man? We're like we're like almost at 1 3/4 of slack. We're way out of spec because see, here's our spec mark. That should be our 30 millimeters, so we could be slightly below that or slightly above that, but 30 millimeters was kind of our 1 1/4 roughly is where we're shooting for. So we are out of spec because we have too much chain slack. So we're going to turn in equally on this 12 millimeter bolt on this side and that side, making sure we're keeping these indexing marks about the same. So here we go. We're just going to take our 12 millimeter, and it's kind of a little bit of a just, you know, guesswork. So we're just going to take 1/4 here, 1/4 turn there, and it never takes as much as you think. And then we're going to go over to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. So here we are on the other side, and we're going to do maybe a 1/4 turn and a 1/4 turn, and let's see how that affected the chain slack. So if we recheck our chain slack now, oh, we've affected it. Okay, but look, we're still outside of our spec. And we'll need to lower this tape measure down because you can see now we're not oscillating as high. So we'll have to keep checking this here. Okay, we're getting close. Now we're the top of the rivets there, and then as we glide down, ooh, we're getting close. You can see we're still out of spec. So we're going to go maybe another 1/4 turn and another 1/4 turn. So we come back here, and here we are. We're going to give this another 1/4 turn and another 1/4 turn. Let's just kind of feel this for a second. Oh yeah, we're making a difference. Let's do the same thing on the other side of the adjuster. So we're going to walk around the bike, and we're going to do our 1/4 turn over here. So we're going to do a 1/4 turn roughly and a 1/4 turn roughly. Okay, let's recheck our slack. So here we are checking again. Oh yes, I can tell we've tightened it. We're getting really close now. I can just tell. And after a while, you get to where you can kind of get a feel for it. We're just outside of spec now. Now we're right there at the top of the rivets, and when I glide that down, see, we're just outside. So we're gonna, you know, we need to be right about there. So we're gonna tighten it up just maybe, instead of 2 1/4 turns on each side, maybe 1 1/4 turn on each side. So we're gonna do that same thing right now. So I guess the point here is how much your chain will need will be different. Depending on how much wear there is or how loose it is. It just takes a little trial and error. Just have to be patient, give it good attention to detail, but no reason you can't do this yourself. It's super easy. You just have to take your time. And it kind of feels good to take your time and do a really nice job. Okay. Oh yeah, I think we've got it. Let's triple check that. Okay, we've got it. So if I go up here, you can see I can just get that to get the end of that measuring tape to catch the rivets there. And then when I depress it down, you can see I can just get that to go to the other extreme. So we're at 1 1/4 of slack there. And it's not quite showing up on video as well as it did in person, but we're definitely right in there. See, there, at that 1 1/4, roughly 30 millimeters, and then at the other extreme. So we're measuring that excursion. Okay, and I like the 30 millimeters because we could be, you know, the lower end of the spec is 25, so we could be a tad tighter if we needed to, or we could be a tad looser, so that puts us in the middle. That's, in my opinion, just a real nice, safe range. I feel good about that. Okay, so now it's just a matter of triple checking here. We're like, you know, how many of those or do we have showing? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of barely showing the 5th one. And if we go to the other side, we want to make sure it's equal to. So if we come over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and barely 5. It actually looks perfect. We got kind of lucky. Now, if we didn't we found that there was a difference, we would take a moment and, you know, square that up so that you want your chain to be running squarely down to your front sprocket. That's why it's important that that is straight. Okay, so we'll snug up these bolts. You want to hold this bolt steady while you lightly tighten this lock nut onto that, and we'll do that on both sides. And then the last step is we'll tighten the axle. Just a quick note on why I use an O-ring chain. Once you get these things in adjustment, man, they wear really well, and they don't go out of adjustment very often. Sometimes when you first install a new chain, you go on a ride or two, it might go out of adjustment. Just barely need some tightening. And then once you make that adjustment, I've run this chain on a number of bikes, and man, they maintain their adjustment really, really well. So just something I've learned. I'm working on a lot of bikes. I have my CRF 300 RL over here, and look what we have. Oh, I'm running the same chain, and it's funny. I put this chain on, and I've put almost 1,800 miles since I put that chain on. I haven't adjusted it. It hasn't gone out of adjustment yet. So I mean, they're just good chains. That's all I can say. And I have no affiliation with this chain company. I'm just some random Oregon Moto John guy on YouTube. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. I have no reason to tell you anything else but what I found works well. So here we are, just lightly snugging this up. Don't go crazy. Those are little nuts. Okay, good. That's snugged up, and that's not going to go anywhere. We'll do the same to the other side. This goes without saying, I suppose, but make sure you put your bike up on its center stand so that the rear wheel is off the ground. That's how chain slack is adjusted. I don't think I specifically mentioned that, but you know, it's showing that, but it's just a good point to mention. Okay, we're almost done. Here's my torque wrench with my 19 millimeter socket on it, set for 59 Newton meters. That's the proper torque for this. So I got my click torque wrench, and we're just going to tighten this up until we hear the infamous click. I did have to hold the bolt on the other side with that 14 millimeter end wrench. But now that it's snug, I don't have to hold it anymore. So we'll come back over here and let's get it to 59 Newton meters. Here we go. We're getting closer all the time here. Let's keep going. And on this other side, you don't have to do it this way, but I let the paper rolls help me hold that nut or that bolt. Okay, back to the side. Okay, we're getting close, I think. And you'll eventually hear a click. There it goes. That's what it'll do. See how it clicks? Unless you have the beeping kind. So we're at torque. Okay, and it's pretty close to where it was from the factory. I indexed this just because I was curious. So you can make a mark on the bolt and then maybe make a small mark here if you want. That's a good way to tell if your bolt's coming loose. And now that we're at the torque of 59 Newton meters, I'll make a little indexing mark on the bolt, or on the nut, and then on this part of the bike. Just needs to be a little bitty dab there, and you don't have to do this, but that way if I notice that this starts to offset from this mark, I'll know my axle nut's coming loose and I need to recheck that. Don't ask me why I do that now, but one time I did have an axle nut start to come loose, and I didn't lose my rear wheel, but I was on my way. So since then I've been very careful about torquing things and then rechecking them, and since I've done that, I've never had one loosen up again. But take your time, torque it, and you don't want to lose your back wheel. It's super important. So just in buttoning things up here, rear axle is torqued. These are snug down. This is equal on each side. Our hash marks are equal on both sides, so our chain is straight. This is adjusted properly. We feel good about that. Sometimes the chain will tighten a little bit after you torque things down, actually. So we got our axle nut loosened up, these broken off, and we're just gonna go like a quarter turn on these, and then I think I'll lightly tighten the axle and see how it influences the chain slack. Okay, we've tightened down our axle bolt to 59 Newton meters. We've made sure we put our lock nut on our adjusters here and here. So we're to torque spec. Just to triple check, we're just going to make sure that things are still in adjustment here, and they are looking perfect, so I feel good about that. Nothing to worry about there. Once in a while, if you tighten the axle nut, it can snug this up a little bit, but most of the time it doesn't. But it's always good to check it. So that's all there is to it. I hope this helps someone out there. It's actually pretty easy to do. And again, there's the chain I use. I got a video on that. Anyway, hope you're all doing well, and keep riding, and take care of your Honda, and it'll take care of you. Just as a footnote here, you can rotate the wheel and keep checking it at different places. Sometimes there's variability, but especially with the new drivetrain, I have not found there to be much variability in that, but that isn't a wrong thing to do. And then you would, of course, set that to be in spec at the tightest portion of the chain when you were rotating it. But in this case, that's why I kind of like going with the 30 millimeters, because the Honda adjustment is 25 to 35, so at 30 it kind of gives you a little leeway for that, I guess. So that's just what I do. You can do what you want though.